Welcome to AGAPE Social Justice, where we focus on love, truth, and justice. Thank you for tuning in with us today. We have a special guest with us by the name of Dale Brown. Dale is the founder and owner of Detroit Threat Management Center, and he also has a facility that he calls DUST, Detroit Urban Survival Tactics. And so we're going to talk a little bit about how Dale started, what he does today, and how you can learn about how you can protect yourself in the community. So Dale, we thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so we've known each other, I think, for probably, maybe 15 years or so now.
Or 20.
Maybe 20 years.
Yes.
Actually, it has been over 20 years.
Right.
So I met you through my husband, Walter, who's retired from Michigan State Police. And I understand that he's done a multitude of trainings with you and you all have gone out into the community. But take a
Yes.
moment and just talk to our listening audience and tell them who you are, how you got started into this, and what exactly you do.
Well, I own Detroit Urban Survival Training, which is the training school that I created from Detroit Threat Management Center. For the past 28 years, we've been protecting people and teaching people how to protect themselves. And currently, we protect approximately 5,000 families in the Detroit area. And what we specialize in is how to create nonviolent outcomes by design. So how to understand psychology, law, and skill so you can create a non-adversarial interaction for a nonviolent outcome by design.
Okay. And so your story is pretty unique. You come from a legacy of business owners with your family history. This episode will be airing right after Black History Month. So I do want you to touch on that a little bit too, in terms of that legacy, and then what made you want to do this?
Well, my family was the first family to have a privately owned hospital in Detroit. It's the first African American privately owned hospital. It's called Mercy General. My great grandmother was the first African American female physician licensed in the state of Michigan. Her name was Daisy Northcross. And my great grandfather was David Northcross. And they were married. They started the first hospital together in 1917. And they came to Detroit because the KKK told them to leave Alabama.
Mm.
So, violence and terror has been part of, our actually family legacy.
Right.
So the reason they came here was out of fear. And then they came to Detroit, and my great grandfather, unfortunately, was murdered after my grandfather had been abducted and ransomed. So, and I've had another cousin of mine killed as well.
Mm.
So, my point is that the part of my organization is to empower people with the ability to protect themselves, just like my family needed, is to make sure I can do what I can to help other families have the skill set necessary for them to create safety for their families. Because without safety, we can have nothing.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Gosh, I knew there was a story there with the family, but I didn't realize that many people have been impacted. And so I can definitely understand why you have this passion to make sure that we're protecting ourselves. There is another story that I've heard you share in terms of how you've helped people in the community. Can you
Yes.
share with us what you witnessed out on the street and when you made that decision to say, you know what, I'm going to step up and figure out how I can feel the need that's here?
Well, there was two personal incidents. One I didn't actually witness, which was the woman. Her name was Dalitha Ward. She was chased off the bridge, the Belle Isle Bridge, in front of a crowd of people, in front of her daughter. She was yanked out of a car, stripped of her clothing, and then she jumped off the bridge because the men were going to attack her. And so she tried to jump off the bridge to save her life, and she lost her life.
Mm.
And I thought, you know what? I need to focus on what I can do with my purpose, which is to train people to protect themselves. And I thought if I trained people and they were on that bridge, they could have saved her. That could have been a horrible event that didn't happen to a family. So I started teaching on the east side, and then I saw something that changed me, which was a young lady getting attacked, a young girl rather. She's 14 years old, attacked by a mob of women, adults. And I did not help her physically because I was told not to. I was told by a particular law enforcement officer who thought, in retrospect, I thought he was, saying, don't get involved because he doesn't want, someone to get involved, like in general, like just a general threat or something.
Right.
I think, as I think back, he was an older sergeant,
Mm-hmm.
and I think he thought I was making a mistake by getting involved. So I think he thought I was being a vigilante, and he thought that maybe I was going to get in trouble because I didn't know what I was doing. He didn't realize that after the military, I was a private investigator, so I understood the law. He didn't understand that I had a system. So he thought that I was probably just like a security guard that wanted to be helpful, and he was probably saying, in retrospect, I think of it now, don't get involved in things in the neighborhood because it could ruin lives, right? Your life too. And so I didn't. At the time I thought it was a threat to me, so I did not interfere. I called 911 repeatedly, and then I took the young lady to the police station the next day with her mother. Reluctantly, the mother didn't believe the police would help, and the next day, police officers that were there, which is an African American female, and she was around the same age as the victim's mother. Uh, she was very disrespectful to her and was not helpful at all. And that's when I realized that, you know what, instead of blaming police, what we have to do is, if we want things to be right, we have to make it right. So I was willing to do what it took, and that means I had to self-sacrifice. And that means that I had to think about others before myself. I had to make sure that, what drives me was the fact that I care more about this other person's safety than my own. So there's no way I could make myself feel safe and then also make other people safe. So I'm going to have to be inherently unsafe as I go make other people safe, and that's just something I have to accept. And I did that. So at that moment, I realized that what I had to do was create an organization, not just hope for the police to show up at the time of need. And so I trained people from the city, from the community. I got volunteers. I got the building owners to give me one free apartment in each building. And even then, I had to be cunning in how how I created the inspiration for the building owners to get involved because they didn't want to. One of the building owners who owned 17 buildings in the area, he said, I don't want to help with your plan of altruism and helping the family around here, families with the home invasions and murders and then all these things that are violent, because I've owned the buildings for 30 years. He said, what do you think you could do the entire police department of Detroit could not do for me? You got what, a dog and a rifle? What are you going to do? What are you going to do that the entire police department couldn't do? And I thought about it and I said, wow, that's a good point. What could I do? I said, but you know what? I'd rather try and die trying than know that I did not do my best to help the families here. Right. And so I said, I started to have legal rights to have a security to be in the building enforcing rules against these gang members. So imagine there's about 500 family members in this one square block. 500 family members. These are women, children, senior citizens. And of the 500 people, 10% are criminals. So it's 50 criminals that are terrorizing 450 regular people. And so what I did was volunteered and also got the building owners I convinced them to invest in their own profitability, which they did small amount. They gave me the ability to have a school. They gave me a place to live. They gave me a place to teach out of, and they gave me one free apartment in each building. And I got volunteers from the community. I trained them in my self-defense system I created, and then I got them a free apartment.
Wow.
And we made the community safe physically. So that means we stopped the gang members, but we did it legally. So we used the law and we used skill set. So we learned. So as I taught them how to fight, how to use a knife, pistol, shotgun, a rifle, how to fight on the ground, how to fight standing up. What I also taught was legally how to use force as a citizen so that you don't get yourself in trouble.
So how exactly did you're not an attorney, right? You have a military background. Obviously, you have some business skills, and you've learned this from family. Where did you draw all of this?
Business skills or knowledge, I learned it all
just
the hard way because I had to. In order to fund the organization, I had to learn about business to be self-sustainable and self-funding. So all of our money is sweat equity. So no one's donated anything. Everything I have was from sweat equity. So we go out, we help people that are poor for free, and we help rich people for money. And the rich people are the ones that are able to help fund everything. Because what happens is when you make rich people richer, because you made the poor people safer, right? You create a prosperous economy. So I created a situation where the essentially it just means that you're creating using protection, you're creating prosperity for the wealthy. Right. By creating protection for the poor.
I call that a win-win.
Yes, it's a win for everyone. And the police department won as well. So what happened was the building owners went to the black for the first time because no one's moving out from the murders and home invasions, which was common. There was one murder a month. There was home invasions every day. There were single women with children being being home invaded, and they were being attacked in their homes by female gangs and male gang members. So what I did was stopped all that.
And this
stopped
is
all
what
the gangs.
year? What year?
This is 1995.
Okay. So in 1995, you see all of this happening. You decide, you know what, I'm going to step up. I'm going to and figure out something. You get this system set up with the owner of the business.
Owner of
So
buildings, different
of the
buildings,
buildings,
apartment buildings.
and so walk us through what did you do exactly? So you have volunteers now at 17 buildings. You're
We had 10
creating a
buildings in one
system.
square block. Yeah.
Okay.
And so what we did was we created a way for the people who live there to live in peace. So I
Okay.
focused on quality of life, not law enforcement. So we have
Okay.
law enforcement officers. So police, I made good connections with police officers
Okay.
that were community oriented, and they were helpful. Most of them were helpful. Then, most importantly, what I did was made it so that violent criminals did not have the opportunity to hunt the families. So we made it so that you could not come in the buildings without identification. So you couldn't go in there and harass the families. You can't sell dope in here because you have to have ID to get to the front door. So we physically made it safe. So you didn't have to beat people up or shoot people. You have to make it safe. That means prevention. That means protection. That's not responding to things that have already occurred and then taking a report
Right.
and then trying to put people to capture them, cage them, or maybe have to kill them if necessary because of crimes they committed. It was the opposite of that. So we create a condition where no crime gets done. So therefore, you don't have to go capture anyone. Therefore, you don't have to cage anyone. There's no prosecution because no crimes took place. But
Right.
you have to be prevention oriented. That's where the profit's at. Profit is only in one place, prevention. So there's no profit in prosecution. And so essentially what we focus on is a paradigm shift. So this form of safety in a public environment under private control required a different way of thinking than what is standard, right? So how to create conditions where people can have a good quality of life. You can't have people coming all night to do prostitution in and out of the building because people can't sleep. You can't have people coming in and out to deal drugs. So you have to make it so that there's no place for them to feel safe to go buy the drugs. You have to make it so they're inspired not to want to be here. You don't have to intimidate them. You have to use violence. You have to make them believe there's no good opportunity to do your business here. And as a result, the property value increased. The building owners went from a 30% occupancy to 50%, 90% to a waiting list. So now all of a sudden, you're making more money you've ever made before, and all I did was make it safe for the families.
Okay. So I know there's some people who are like, how in the world did he do this? Right? Because we have local law enforcement, we have county, we have state, we have special units and teams who've been created, especially in the Detroit area over the years to try to address crime, and they haven't been able to figure it out. So, walk us through how did you get to the point without being law enforcement and without being a SWAT team, what do your tactics look like? How are you able to do this?
Like I said, the first one was we locked down the buildings. We put men in the building, so you can't go in here
Right.
without identification. If you don't live here, you can't
Okay.
come in. So all of a sudden now you can't have drug dealing because people that want to go buy drugs and sell drugs don't have ID.
We have a lot of laws, we have a lot of rules that are put in place, and people don't obey them. They just
Well,
do whatever they want
there's
to
no
do.
one, there's
So,
no one to prevent them. So you have to be there. So you can't come to the neighborhood after, rape, robbery, and murder, and then prevent it. And then if you don't
okay.
prevent it, that means you still had it, which means you don't have a safe environment. You have an unsafe environment. So if we wait for everyone to get raped, robbed, and murdered, then we go and arrest them, they've already made it a terrible place. Property value down. No one wants to live there. Occupancy level low in whatever city, town, or building that you're in. Anytime rape, robbery, murder occurs, even if you catch them, it's still horrible. It's deleterious for your functionality of your community or corporation. Right? You can't have a good life that way.
Yeah. Presence
So
is key. That's what I hear you saying. The
presence, but presence that's positive
right,
and protective.
right,
So it can't be presence that's oppressive or aggressive
right.
or in any way focused on the enforcement of law. It has to be what you're enforcing is safety protocols, right? So fire department, when they come to your building, they do an assessment to make sure things don't catch on fire, right? And they have laws and rules they enforce so they don't catch on fire, right? You still have some fires, but it's very few. So there used to be a lot of school fires in this country. What happened? Fire codes. They have fire doors now. They have fire retardant paint. They have all these. They have a system in every school that stops, fires before they happen with sprinklers, and also has smoke detectors. So they've, built up an entire infrastructure to stop fires in school. You have to do the same thing for gunfire. If you wanted to stop active shooters, you could, but you have to stop them the same way you would actually fires. And that's built codes and safety measures. If you can have a fire door, anti-fire door, you can have a what? An anti-bulletproof door, an anti-ballistic door. So it's just a matter of coding changing. So you don't make it so the glass is between the students and the gunman. You make it so it's bulletproof glass. You make it so you can't come on the property. You can't bring inflammatory things onto a school property without permission. You can't have things that are inflammatory in a school. Even the paint's not flammable. So you can have all the doors being bulletproof, all the surfaces. I mean, it's something you can do to make our kids safe everywhere. And so what we got to do is look at things from um, an actual standpoint of safety. Protection is the cornerstone of our purpose, not prosecution. So what I'm doing is something that's the opposite of our current model for public safety. So public safety is based upon a metrics, which is negative, right? Negative outcomes are arrests, prosecutions, incarceration. Those three negatives, there's nothing positive about that for your community, for your family, for your company. You don't want to have a good company, a good family by having a bunch of arrests in your family, a bunch of prosecutions and imprisonment of people in your family.
Sure.
Or your company, or your corporation, or your community. So that's not a positive metrics. What you'd want is to reward police officers by creating another system of positive metrics. How many less attacks do we have this year? What do we empower police officers with? We should give them bulletproof vehicles. Why? Because we expect police officers to go there. We need to give them financial bonuses. If you want cops to take a drug test, give them a bonus, $1,000 to go take a drug test. Take $1,000 for a physical fitness test. You want police officers to drive more careful. Give them $1,000 for quarterly for not crashing a car. And where do you get the money from? When you don't have lawsuits, we don't have injuries, when you don't have deaths, you have a lot more money to pay the officers, to pay the performance bonuses that you want. And so if you have a bunch of healthy, happy, wealthy officers, you're going to have a much healthier community that's safer for everyone.
I agree. We've actually had a couple of people come on the show already and talk about what we need to do for law enforcement, because when they're happy and healthy, I think we're safer, right?
100%.
We're out in the community.
Yes.
So you talked about having a system in place, and you have a phenomenal system. I mean, there's no way that I can even articulate to the audience in terms of what you created from scratch, from your background. You draw from military, you have experience in martial arts, right? What makes up Dale Brown?
Well, what happens, I had to learn from mistakes. So I had to keep learning. So evolution, constantly saying, you know what, I blame myself for any inappropriate outcome. So once I blame myself, then I got to figure out how to fix it. So because I'm private sector, that means I'm responsible for outcome. So at the end of the day, my income and my outcome are related. My outcome, my income are related. So whatever we produce is what we get. If we produce nothing positive, you get nothing positive. So if I have a mistake, if we do something wrong, if something's not right, we've got to correct it before it happens again. There's no way we can say, you know what, sometimes you got to break a few eggs to make an omelet.
Yeah.
No. Why are you making an omelet?
Sure.
Why do you want to make an omelet right now? This is supposed to be you creating something that is positive. You shouldn't want to break anything. And so that is something that we had to change. And I had to create an entire different a paradigm shift in thought process. So my goal had to be one thing. What is it that the families need? They need safety. That means they don't want to be raped, robbed, murdered. They don't want to be home invaded. So I have to create a condition where that doesn't happen. What do the wealthy building owners want? They want people not to move out. So I have to create a condition where the people are happy and safe, and then they don't move out, and then they pay their bills, and now the wealthy building owners are wealthier. So that's exactly what happened. What I didn't realize is so did the store owner. The store owner now has more customers. What I didn't realize that all the stores got way more customers, so now they're able to improve their stores. The corner store, the liquor store at the end of the block has been there for years. All of a sudden, there's a new awning, marble floor, beautiful. I mean, everything's beautiful inside the store, all because there were so many customers. Now they have way more money than they used to have it.
Yeah.
And now there's more taxes being paid, which means you now can have more bonuses for police. You can have more bonuses for your city, right? Because you made it safer for the families, and therefore it has a trickle-down effect where it trickles up the economics of everyone.
Now, you've provided security for neighborhoods. You've had a bodyguard academy. Do you still do that now? Okay. I know you've done high-profile events, community events. You've worked with celebrities. You've actually gone viral lately, all over TikTok. I see YouTube. You doing the eyebrow. Give the audience that eyebrow real quick.
On YouTube, we have one video that has 158 million views.
Okay.
And we probably have about 3.5 million followers and subscribers throughout our social media. And that's been the last two years here.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been amazing.
So you've trained officers as well. My husband was one of them, which,
Yes.
by the way, we credit you for changing, giving him a paradigm shift in terms of how he views policing. Not that he was out there,
No, no,
participating in
no. He's always
police
a good guy.
brutality,
Yeah.
but there was just a shift in the thinking in terms of the level of protection that we should expect from people. But that came directly from the training and the psychology behind what you do. So, talk to us about the psychology of the tactics. And for all those critics out there who don't believe that it's real, I want you to give a message to them as
Yeah.
well.
So psychology is the most important thing we teach, and that's what I learned over the past 28 years. And so I couldn't have learned it anywhere else because I had to have actual boots on the ground experience. So without experience, you don't understand your behavior, the behavior of others, and how to use that knowledge to create something better. In my case, I had to. So if I made failures, I'd figure out what made me make that failure. If my team members had failures, I've had over 3,500 team members, males and females, older, younger. So I had to learn how to understand people and how to train them to have the emotional, mental, and physical ability to manage threat and fear and create positive outcomes. So if you want to change someone's behavior, instead of thinking about how to use intimidation, you use inspiration. I learned that inspiration is from a positive place. And so when you go to protect people, you don't go there for duty, you go there out of love. When a mother protects her child, when a father protects his family, he's doing it out of love, not out of obligation or duty. So you don't want to do anything for protection that's not related to love of people. If you don't love people, you cannot properly protect them. Because we as people will always protect what we truly love. It's natural. It's ingrained in us. It's instinctive. But you can't truly protect anything from any high level of threat if you're not willing to sacrifice yourself for that which you're protecting. Because that's what it requires. I mean, at the end of the day, you have to, whether you're a firefighter, police officer, or no matter what you are, you have to be willing to put yourself at risk. And that means that if you think the house is on fire, the building's on fire, and you're a firefighter and you want to go rescue those people, you would have to go in there knowing that you might die. And so if you're not the kind of person who's willing to die for others, you can't be a firefighter that's successful in those kind of conditions. The same is true for police. So, one of the things we should do is provide police with the things that they need to succeed, just like firefighters: full PPE, a bulletproof face helmet. Everything's bulletproof. The entire uniform is bulletproof and fireproof. A lot of police officers actually respond to fires and rescue people out of burning cars with no equipment. So we need to provide that for police. We expect that from police. We expect them to go with these things that are dangerous. Well, let's give them all the things that they need, and then have high expectations. Don't give them low levels of training, and then have high expectations of output. Give them maximum training, and then pay them maximum for them to continue their training every week, because you want them to perform every week. It's expensive, yes. So having actual public safety will be very expensive. What we have now is the best we can do. What we got to do better. As you can see, there's lots of problems. But those problems are directly correlated not with the officers. It's more about the system, the formula that created the problems. We can fix the formula, and then 9 out of 10 of the problems we're having that people are complaining about with law enforcement in general could be fixed by simply working on the formula, making sure it makes sense. Do what you're supposed to do to create the best possible outcome, which starts with investment. You have to have the best people doing the best work. That means you have to hire the best people. That means you have to have competitive pay. What is the best, what would you ask of this person? You'd ask them to be able to go into a situation that's highly dangerous and to possibly risk their life. So, you can make them a firefighter, a paramedic, and a police officer, all 3 of those jobs in one person. Now you have a highly educated person, and that police officer also has psychological training. So there's a lot of sociology and counseling training that can go into officers that would help them. Every one of them should have this training, not a special unit, but every officer should have a high degree of understanding of psychology so they can read body language. That's what we teach. And so by reading body language, we're able to understand the real threat from a false threat and avoid false positives. Without psychological training, you don't understand yourself, you don't understand others, and you don't understand how to read things properly. READ is an acronym for us. READ stands for recognize, evasive, aggressive, deceptive behavior. So we teach people to do that. We teach police officers and civilians how to read body language. Then we teach you how to physically dominate threats without injuring people. How do you disarm them? How do you take them into custody? First of all, if you want to take someone into custody, the first thing you have to do is create a trust bond. They have to believe you're not going to hurt them. Otherwise, even if your job is to take them into custody, this person, if they fear you, they're going to have a fear-based response. Their brain is going to have a subconscious fear-based triggered response when they fear for their safety. Even if they want to comply, they can't, simply because of fear. So we have to avoid fear. We have to teach that, hey, if I want this person to comply with me, I need to speak with them in such a way that it keeps them calm and believing that complying with me is the best possible outcome, and it leads to the best possible outcome. So the moment they believe that complying with me, if they comply, they die. The moment their brain tells them that subconsciously, they're going to start panicking. And there's only three responses they're going to have then psychologically. They're going to fight, they're going to freeze, and yeah, and flight. They're going to run. So either one of those three things. And what you don't want to do,
Which we see playing out all
correct,
the time in videos.
yes, they start running for
Yeah.
no reason, start fighting for no
Right.
reason, or just won't move, right? So
Right.
sometimes they're deaf, which is another problem, right? So we need to teach about how to read body language. You can understand when a person is mentally not able to understand, right? Which could also come from a medical condition, speaking a different language. There's lots of reasons why they can't respond properly
Right.
to your commands,
Right.
no matter who you are.
Right.
And that's what all citizens need to know, not just cops, but regular people need to know that a person could be in your house and not be a bad guy. They could have dementia. They can have autism. These are things that are happening right now. People are dying as a result of a lack of not knowing
Right.
the psychological aspects of human behavior.
And this is something that you incorporate into
Yes.
the training
Yes.
with officers. Okay. Do you still offer training right now for law enforcement or first responders in general?
Absolutely. Our training for programs for police is called Enforcer Tech.
Okay.
And our first program that we give to any officer is called NICE. It stands for Non-Injury Compliance Extractions.
Okay.
These are all the basic things that we know police officers need that can help every officer help
Okay.
us as the public.
Okay.
So we give that to any officer that
And
wants
if they
to
go
train.
to your website, is this something that they can see? You know, can they see all the different trainings?
Well, you can
that
see if you go to our
offer?
website, you go to on our YouTube, which is Detroit Threat Management Center. On YouTube, you'll see police testimonials. You'll see victims, domestic violence victims, stalking victims, and crime witnesses that we protected for free and gave testimonials over the years, over the past almost 30 years now.
Okay.
So you can see lots of evidence of effectiveness of our training and of the outcomes. So a lot of police officers are on there talking about how they use the training to disarm guns, to disarm people with different types of weapons, and create peace. What we're most proud of is that people use our training to create a nonviolent outcome.
Right, right. Well, I love it. Before you go, quickly tell the listening audience how they can follow you on social media.
Yes, you can go to Detroit Threat Management Center on YouTube, Detroit_Dust on Instagram.
All right, that was easy. Well, we will certainly make sure that we bring more of your content to our listening audience because there are videos that will protect us. And what you said about loving the community is all about agape. That's what it's all about, is loving one another. So I thank you so much for coming here
Thank
today.
you for having me.
We hope that we can bring Dale back to Agape Social Justice in the future. Like I said, we will make sure that we post on our social media, Agape Social Justice, on Facebook, on Instagram, Agape Social Just, on Twitter, and on YouTube, Agape Social Justice. We will make sure that we share those videos. Take the time to learn what you can do for yourself and for your family. And then as you learn that information, one of the things that we always do is ask for a call to action. Your call to action is to do exactly what we talked about today. That is to love yourself, love your neighbor, love your community.
Exactly.
So take that information, share it. If you don't have a relationship with your local law enforcement agency, I ask you to take the time, reach out to them, and share what Dale does because he actually has a benefit for all of us. It's a win-win. And to me, that's what we should be about. So thank you again for tuning in to Agape Social Justice, and we will see you next time.